Now, one of the reasons that we are so captivated by horror cinema is for the incredible display of creative talent from special effects artists and visual designers that somehow manage to capture the physical form of nightmarish monsters and gruesome creations, breathing life into an idea from a script all the way to the silver screen. Sometimes though, their creative talent is a little too real, and historically, in some cases anyway, it's left audiences a little too shocked to say the least. And horror cinema, particularly grindhouse and splatter horror, sometimes just so happens to be a little too real. So, let's take a look, shall we? Hello horror fans, and once again welcome back to the scariest channel on YouTube, Top 5 Scary Videos. As per usual, I'll be your horror host Jack Finch, as today we circumvent the BBFC and take a look at the top 5 horror movies that were almost too real. Roll the clip. Let's go. For the curious amongst you, that clip was from 1987's Evil Dead 2, and in no way is it tied to this list. I just love it and thought it was rather fitting. So, in the immortal words of Ash Williams, let's go. Kicking off at number 5, A Lizard in a Woman's Skin, 1971. For those of you that don't know, giallo cinema was a very specific style of Italian horror, particularly tied to the mid to late 1960s, which often employed murder mystery tropes with dramatic suspense building, peaked with bursts of slasher violence and fantasy eroticism. It's not for everyone, but it had a massive impact on later American slasher horror, and perhaps one of the most intriguing examples of giallo cinema is 1971's A Lizard in a Woman's Skin, directed and written by Lucio Fulci. Well, as chance would have it, legendary special effects artist Carlo Rambaldi was actually tied to this film before his work on Steven Spielberg's E.T., and his eye for visual nasties was so convincing that it actually landed the director in an Italian criminal court. During the events of the film, the lead character Carol finds herself wrapped up in an LSD-fueled crime story involving murderous dreams and mind-bending altercations, and at one point finds herself confronted with 4 vivisected dogs, their chests open and their hearts still beating. The physical effects were so convincing that the courts charged Lucio Fulci with animal cruelty, and the director faced a 2-year prison sentence. In the end, Carlo Rambaldi had to present the animatronic creations in front of a court, where the charges were eventually dropped. Now that's a close call. Coming in at number 4, Guinea Pig, Flowers of Flesh and Blood, 1985. Perhaps one of the most controversial depictions of horror cinema in the whole of Japanese history, if not the rest of the world. The Guinea Pig films are a series of 6 Japanese horror films from the early 1980s and 90s, based off of the filmmaker Hideshi Hino's own horror manga series of a similar nature that depicts incredibly graphic and grotesque Japanese body horror and violence. Now listen, this style of horror cinema isn't really for me, but fringe filmmaking has often pushed the boundaries so that the mainstream can further develop the genre as a whole. But on the flip side, Hideshi Hino's work had a pretty rough time, to say the least, and the filmmaker had to constantly prove that no one was actually hurt or murdered during production. While in a bizarre turn of events that involved Charlie Sheen, of all people, it had the Guinea Pig series being investigated by the FBI. In 1991, actor Charlie Sheen was given a copy of the second film in the series, Flowers of Flesh and Blood, and after watching it, Sheen mistook it for a genuine Snuff film, claiming that the graphic depictions on screen were so lifelike that there was no way special effects could have pulled it off. He was so convinced that he contacted the FBI to report it, only to find that they were in fact already investigating the filmmakers, who were then summoned to a Japanese court to prove that the special effects were fake. Must have been all of that tiger blood. Swinging in at number 3, August Underground, 2001. Alright, let's not beat around the bush. This film isn't for me, and after speaking to a few of you in the comment section a few months back, it's not for most people, really. Although there is something to be said about director Fred Vogel's audacity to actually make this film, and the fact that August Underground was even made is worthy of a commendation. Vogel intended to make the most messed up film he possibly could, and he did exactly that. Written, directed and produced by Fred Vogel, with a writing credit going to his off-screen supporting actor Alan Peters, August Underground depicts the exploits of a serial killer named Pete meter mountain while being filmed by his unseen accomplice. The thing is though, Fred Vogel's sadistic cinematic interpretation was a little too real for some. While travelling to Canada to attend the Rue Morgue Festival of Fear in Toronto, Vogel was arrested at the airport pending charges of transporting obscene materials into Canada after copies of August Underground and its sequels were found by customs officials that he intended to sell at the convention. Vogel was held for roughly 10 hours in customs prison while his films were sent to Ottawa for analysis. Eventually he was released without charge, and ultimately Vogel probably got the reaction that he was actually hoping for all along. Next up at number 2, Snuff, 1976.
Ladies and gentlemen, the bloodiest thing that ever happened in front of a camera. Snuff.
And much like August Underground, the creators of Snuff actually made this film with the intention of convincing people that it was real, in what proved to be one of the most calamitous and opportunistic turns of events in horror history. In 1971, notorious grindhouse husband and wife duo Michael and Roberta Finley had made a low-budget exploitation film known as Slaughter, filmed in Argentina on a budget of $30,000. And well, obviously it was terrible and suffered a string of limited releases until it was picked up by Alan Shackleton, an independent low-budget film distributor, where he kept it in his archive for 4 years. Until 1976, when the urban legend of snuff cinema was at its highest peak and Shackleton figured he could cash in. He later retitled it Snuff, as well as refilming the entire ending, this time depicting what appeared to be a real murder after the filmmakers had supposedly finished rolling. The audience saw the crew members brutally murder the film's lead actress before cutting to black and removing the film's credits. To add insult, it was also marketed with the tagline, "The film that could only be made in South America, where life is cheap." And well, it worked. The public genuinely believed that it was a snuff movie and contained video evidence of a murder. So much so that Shackleton and crew were investigated by the District Attorney of New York, who wasn't appeased until he actually saw the lead actress alive and well. Obviously she was alive, but still, I'd consider that a pretty close call. And finally, our number 1 spot, Cannibal Holocaust, 1980. And it has to be, really, perhaps the most notorious exploitation film of all time that eventually saw the film's creator, Ruggero Deodato, charged with multiple counts of murder after its release in 1980. Cannibal Holocaust is a title synonymous with exactly how far filmmakers can push the boundaries of cinematic violence and depravity. But in the end, it has proved to be a retrospection of the ethics of journalism, the exploitation of developing countries, and the nature of an expansive society versus indigenous peoples. Also noted as one of the most important found footage films of all time, Cannibal Holocaust depicts a multi-layered narrative, initially focusing on a team of film crew members who go missing in an area of the Amazon rainforest known as the Green Inferno, a title later used by Eli Roth in his own homage to Deodato's work. After its release, the world was so shocked by the depiction of graphic violence that the vast majority of the public were convinced it was real, exacerbated by a rumour that several actors had indeed been killed on camera whilst filming. Of course, Deodato was eventually cleared of all charges after the film's actors finally appeared in a television interview, but the legacy of Cannibal Holocaust lived on. Well, unfortunately folks, I hope that you've enjoyed this list, but that's all we've got time for in today's video. Why don't you let us know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Before we depart, let's read out some of your more creative comments from over the past few days. First up, Katharina L says, "I've seen Lucy's Instagram story and I have to say, you sing good." Oh, well, Katharina, all I can say is I'm glad that Instagram stories are only temporary. Hey, also, what can I say? Karaoke is a serious business. You either go big, or you go home, or you sing Bring Me to Life by Evanescence like my girl Rebecca Falgate. Next up, Daniel Norse Northy says, "Jack, you could narrate anything, you're awesome, mate." Well, Daniel Norse Northy, that's incredibly kind of you, pal, and I'm glad that you said that because I was actually planning on reading out an anthology series of IKEA's best instruction manuals, and you've just given me the confidence to carry it out. I'm just kidding, I'm not going to do that. Well, on that note, cheers for sticking around all the way until the end. If you're a fan of this video, make sure to hit that thumbs up button, as well as that subscribe button, and I'll be seeing you in the next one. As per usual, I've been your horror host, Jack Finch. You've been watching Top 5 Scary Videos, and until next time, take it easy.